Hey everyone, Graham from Loudwire here, and today I'm sitting down through the magic of FaceTime, Raab himself, from the Jackass stuff, CKY, and the Bathroom Break podcast, one of my favorites. Thank you so much, man.
Yo,
Hey.
yeah, thanks for having me on, dude.
Yeah, of course. So I want to get to the podcast and sort of how you came to sort of bring yourself back into the public square, I guess you could say. But let's start off with you kind of dropping off. So it was after Viva La Bam that you kind of said, screw this whole show business thing. Do you remember what's like the first thing that you did when you realized, okay, I'm done with this, time to be a private citizen again?
I probably did some drugs, but I will say, actually, so the timeline of that stuff, it was weird. Like, I don't think I consciously made a decision right off the bat to be done with show business. Okay. It was more like that sort of happened because after Viva La Bam, I knew I was done with Bam. Yeah. And I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to, create a distance there because it wasn't a healthy relationship. And so I actually moved out to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I kind of signed a management deal with Joe Simpson, who was like Jessica and Ashley Simpson's dad.
Oh, okay.
And I signed with him because he was helping me take meetings with MTV, Spike TV, Comedy Central, that stuff, because I had some ideas for TV shows.
Yeah.
So I was pitching TV shows at that point.
Oh, gotcha.
And then that was like almost 2 years of getting things into development, thinking that a show was going to go, and then nothing having gone. So I was out here for like 2 years doing that, trying to make that happen. Kind of on my own, trying to kind of capitalize on Jackass Viva La Bam days and see if I could get a show of my own and do that. And and there seemed to be a lot of interest at the time, and then it just sort of, like kind of fell off, and nobody was nobody was signing the deal to make the show. Yeah. Like I said, we would do a lot of development for like 6 months on end. We'd be like mapping out every episode and doing this whole thing and thinking we were going to do it. And I had 3 different types of shows at that point that we had pitched in that time period, and they never went. And so then I thought, shit, I got to figure something out in life, because if this isn't going to happen. So I went back and finished college. I had, I still had like a semester left in school. I went to Shippensburg, and that's actually a CKY song.
I remember it. Yeah.
So I went there, I went back to school, and I had my last semester. I did my last semester. And that was actually one of the show ideas that was being pitched was for me to like finish college, like a back to school, like Rodney Dangerfield sort of, like thing of going back to school as this older dude now. And like, I mean, I wasn't as old as Rodney Dangerfield, but but I was 27 and the kids were 20, 21, 22. So like when you're that age, 27 seems old. I always remember when I first met Knoxville and Tremaine, they were 29 when I was like 19. I was like, damn, these guys are old as fuck, and it really, it's like, they're not old at all, but you thought they were old as shit. And so I remember I went back to school at 27, and it was crazy because I had done the Viva La Bam, Jackass, all that stuff at that point. So people knew who I was at college, and it was this kind of like this crazy like party, semester of insanity. And I thought it would have made for a great show because there was a bunch of episodes and I had a bunch of ideas for it, but it never went. But that is one where I was like, dude, that would have been so fun. Just like an 8-episode run of like showing this debauchery that was happening in my life. So that happened. I was still drinking, partying, being a madman, jumping off roofs at college, whatever, doing that shit. And I finished school. Then after I finished school, I went on tour for a little bit. I would tour with CKY from time to time. Yeah. Even when Bam and I weren't really getting along, I was still buds with Jess, his brother, and so I would tour with them a little bit. Then I also did these other random tours with like this DJ guy. Like you would show up and just be Raab from MTV or whatever, and then you'd party and, you know, and just stupid debauchery and whatever. And so I did that for a little while too, and then I was trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do with my life, you know, and I had my college degree at that point, but I had called up a friend and was like, hey, you know, I finished like film school and whatever, and she was like, okay, cool. Like, nobody cares. You got to get like a job as like a production assistant or something. And I was like, oh, fuck, really? You know, like, because my mindset was like, I had an ego, I think, at that point where you're like, dude, I did all these shows and this, I'm going to start as a PA. Like, yeah. You know, and so I didn't, but I needed to figure out what I was doing. I ended up bartending and then trying to like do that was fucking awful. Like, I'll say, like, that was a bad move because I was drinking at work and there was drugs everywhere. Yeah. And then I had mentioned this in another interview one time, but this kid that worked there was 16 and he was like, hey, what, you work here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, man, I always thought the Jackass guys were dumb, but now I know they're really dumb, you know? And I was like, fuck, I wanted to kick his ass, but he was like 16. And then I was like, fuck, I want to, like, and I was like getting into a dark place. I wanted to kill myself at this point because I was like, fuck, it's all over, you know? Like, my thought was like, fuck, I had been making good money. I had fucked that all up. I had drug problems. I was bartending. This little piece of shit kid is telling me like that I'm an idiot, and like, I was believing it because my self-esteem was super low, and so it was tough. But I remember working through that and figuring out like, fuck, I need to do something. I need to change something. And I met this lady that helped me get sober, and she brought me into the program. I did all that, and when I did that, I did leave that job, and I started to figure out what the heck is next, you know. Yeah. And there was a friend of mine, this guy who owned a production company. He was like, dude, if you come in, work as a PA on this commercial, like, it could lead to something or whatever, you know? And I was like, okay. And I was totally willing because I had gotten sober and I had lost the ego. I realized like, yo, I need to like just do what I need to do. And so I started working as a PA, you know, as a production assistant and being that dude. And, you know, and it's always thought of as like this low man on the totem pole, but the truth is like PAs are what keep everything together and make everything happen. And I realized that by doing it. And now that I work in the camera department, I'm like super respectful of PAs because you're like, dude, you guys are doing everything. You're making everything happen, you know? And it's like, so some people will be dicks to the PA, and I think it taught me through that period, like, no, they're doing some really important stuff to make, they're the glue that keeps it all together, you know, and so that's been helpful. But that led me to getting into the camera department, because as a PA, I worked in every department, saw how everything worked, like wardrobe, accounting, and production, and sound, and you know, and lighting, and grip, and I did all of that, and then went into the camera department, and that is where I am at now. But I'm working towards becoming a director, and so that was kind of a long-winded way of saying that's what I started doing after that, and it led me back into the entertainment business because I think this is just kind of where I belong, man. It makes sense. There was a period of time where I tried to do like a sales job. Oh no. And like it was awful. Like I shaved my face and put on a tie and like went to this interview, get the job, and these people are like doing stupid shit, like selling things, and I'm like, this feels so wrong, you know? Like, I was like, this is not who I am. But I was confused at that point in time because, you know, I was probably like 29 years old or whatever, and going, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And I recognized pretty quickly, like in like a week and a half, that was absolutely not who I was. Yeah. And so then I moved on back into the production world, and it's been a great fit, man. It's really like true to who I am. I work on some cool stuff as a camera guy, but I'm always working on other projects. I write a lot. I just finished a screenplay that I'm working on, and then, you know, I'm just kind of in this creative realm, and that's where I belong, you know, for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. I watched Bam's episode of Epically Latered, which you're also in. And,
oh, yeah.
And you were talking about the struggle of what's next. for a lot of the Jackass guys. So to me, it sounds like your What's Next eventually found itself behind the camera, and that's kind of where you're happiest right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it made so much sense. Like, I had been around it forever, and people would be like, "Well, yeah, but you weren't a camera guy." It's like, I wasn't, but I did shoot little things here and there. I did have an interest in it. I had taken a bunch of photography classes in high school and college, and I went and I did film school at Shippensburg. Like, I did videoing, like basketball games. I did all that. I did directing of all that stuff, and so it made sense that this is what I was going to do. I think at that point, though, you're clueless because you think like, well, fuck, I get kicked in the balls for a living. Like, what the hell, like what am I, how does that translate into anything, And I think it's just refinding what kind of you're passionate about or what energizes you to go in the direction that you are going, like, productively, and same thing like for Bam and Steve-O and all those guys. Like, it's not just Jackass. Like, they have all these other talents that they've been doing all along the way that is, and so they just are finding their ways into that. And I found that for myself, like, okay, were there these other talents that I just need to kind of explore those and go that direction and realize that it wasn't like this big waste of time, because at some point you're like, not that it was ever a waste of time because it was so awesome, but at some point you're like, but how the hell does that help me going forward? Then I was able to kind of mine that and recognize all of this stuff helps me going forward incredibly. Yeah. In my career in entertainment and in filmmaking and all that, because that's what I've been doing all that time, and now I'm in a different seat, on the bus, but I'm still on that same bus. It's like now I recognize, okay, I'm directing and I'm shooting, but I understand what it is to be in front of the camera, and now I understand what it is to be behind the camera, and that has helped so much because you realize, like, some directors, and not coming down on anybody, but you realize, like, you don't understand what it takes to get in that place. And so sometimes, even if it's just stupid stuff like Jackass, and you're like, yo, I need the adrenaline right now to be able to fucking do this. And then somebody else is sitting behind the camera going, come on, man. You're like, yo, fuck you. Like, let them get to the place they need to get to. Sure. So that they can do this. And so, like, I understand that from being on that side of it, and I think that only helps as I'm moving forward. Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit after Viva La Bam, you did a hot dog casserole, and then a few years after that, a lot of people saw you again when you were on the tribute to Ryan Dunn. So that whole, obviously that was a horrible time, but what was it like having an MTV camera back in your face after that many years? Well, the nice thing was that it was Rick Kosick and Jeff Tremaine. Oh, good. So they came to do that, and it was just our family. Yeah. So it wasn't like, because I'll touch on something else. When Ryan died and when we were doing the memorial and all of that for him and for Zach, it was really weird because there was like Action News or whatever, there was like news cameras and stuff like that, and then there was this big issue with the Baptist church thing or whatever, and then it was actually the pagan motorcycle club that was super helpful. They basically were like, fuck that, and they surrounded the area and were like, look, if you guys want to get through and try and protest this guy's death while his family and friends are all grieving, like, then you got to get through us. And so, like, my heart goes out to the pagans for that always. Like, that was incredible for them to do that. And, like, I love that they did that for us because it did create the separation and protect us in the time of mourning, which was so awesome. And which is crazy because people have an idea of, like, the pagans, oh, this and that, and you're like, but you're actually the ones that are heartlessly trying to protest this because someone died. It's like, and you're passing judgment under this moniker of God says don't pass judgment. So it's all so baffling. But when that was going on and there was like news cameras going, hey, Raab, what do you feel? I'm like, you know what the fuck I feel. You know what I mean? Like, why are you asking that stupid ass question? You just want me to feel like to cry on your camera and to say, oh, it's so horrible. You know that. Have you ever had someone die? Like, you fucking know that. So why are you coming at us with that stupid shit? That was my mindset of it, was like, there's nothing sacred about that. There's nothing comfortable that makes me want to get vulnerable with you while you're sitting there in some shirt and tie stupid shit. Like, how do you feel, Raab? Like, you fucking know. And so when Tremaine and Cossack came, it was just an awesome, like, this is our family. We get to pay respects to our brother. We get to laugh again, because we were laughing a bunch during the shooting of that, and that was really cool. Spike Jones was like super helpful in that for me, because even at the funeral there was this, it was just heavy, you know? Yeah. And he was able to just come up to me and be like, dude, like, I was thinking about this funny ass thing that Ryan did, and I was like, and then I kind of started laughing a little bit, and then he was like, what are some of your funny memories? And then I just started saying some funny memories. And it was the first time I had laughed since he died, and it was awesome. It was so therapeutic, and I love Spike for that, like for just giving you that moment of like remembering that and having it be this like good, happy, like comfortable feeling, and then through doing the filming of the tribute, we were able to have that same vibe, because Rick and Tremaine and all of us, like, we got together and sat there and did that, and so it just was fun, like in a terms of like remembering this dude we love so much, and it felt comfortable. Yeah. But like, I think if it were just some randoms coming in from MTV, it would have that same vibe of the news cameras. I'd be like, who the fuck are these people trying to, you know what I mean? But because it was our family and because it was done that way, that felt right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful tribute in the end, and I think it touched a lot of people's hearts to see everybody speak so candidly and so beautifully about Ryan and Zach, and how much they both meant to you guys.
And like Roger's song fucking makes me cry every time, dude.
Oh,
like,
dude, yeah.
Roger Allen Wade, Knoxville's cousin, like that song at the end.
Better be tough.
Yeah, well, that song, but this one was the Don't Let the Light Outshine the Stars, that he wrote for Ryan. Yeah. That one is like, fuck.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. If I ever want to cry, I'll go listen to it.
Yeah. So then last year you start the podcast. Yeah. And you slowly start to get people from the Jackass world on, along with a lot of other talented people outside the Jackass world. And you start with Cossack, and then you get to Novak. So, like, what is the process in getting in touch with these guys after so many years?
Well, I mean, I'm always in touch with them.
Okay.
So I'm always, like, connected with everybody. It's just, you know, everybody's life gets busy when you get older. So it's like, you know, I didn't see him for 3 months, but whatever, you know. But I'm always been in touch with everybody, and, you know, here and there and whatever. And as far as, like, the episodes of it, it kind of came about as a result of, like, availability and those sort of things. And so, but Cossack, for me, it was like, dude, I hang out with Cossack all the time. Like, I'm going to go see him on Thursday, and like, or he's helping me out now. He's actually helping me out with the podcast and helping produce it and shoot it, because he's got all these great guests and other people that we can meet up with. And so he's become like the producer of it. And but in the beginning, it was like I just always hung out with Cossack. So I was like, yo, would you just do an episode when I was getting started? You know, at first it was like I had a buddy come, and then I had my wife do it, and then I had like Cossack do it, because and I had another friend that's a comedian do it, because I was just like, I had a Zoom recorder from doing like little short films.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I could just plug a mic into this XLR. And then I was like, oh, I could just buy some cheap mics and maybe I'll try this podcast thing. And it was like this mindset of like, man, everybody has a podcast. Because I kept saying like, dude, if you go outside, like this dude walking his dog is like, oh, I got a podcast. And yeah, it's all about my dog's shits. You know, like sometimes it's runny and sometimes like, how do you get the runny shit with a plastic bag on your hand? You know, like
right.
I just thought that's what that guy would have a podcast about. And then it's like everybody has this. And I was like, I'm so late to the mix with that, you know,
yeah.
but it was like, well, I might as well try it, you know, and see if it's any fun and if I'm any good at it or whatever. And so I bought a couple cheap mics and plugged it into this Zoom. Started with my friend, my comedian buddy, and my wife, and then Casa came over, and then the ball was rolling because I had like 4 or 5 episodes under my belt, and it was like, you know, when you go back, like the sound is bad, the video is bad. Sure. These things like and they continue to progress as you go with it. And I think one of my biggest issues is I say the word like all the time and everybody writes that. Everybody writes like, dude, if you say like one more time, I'm like, I don't even realize that I'm saying it. It's just that you say it. And then I'm like, what would go in and every time I say like, be like, like, you know, on every conversation. So I've got to learn how to speak without the word like, but you learn all these things as you're going. You're kind of getting little feedback, and a lot of times I try not to read that stuff because there's sometimes people are just saying stuff that's not helpful or constructive criticism. It's more just, you know, being a dumb dick, and so I try not to read that stuff, but I was trying to get better at the production of it, and Rick has been a big help in making that happen because he's been able to kind of focus on that stuff. When I first started, I literally was hitting record on the camera and then hitting record on the Zoom and being like, oh, hope it's all rolling. All right, let's go. And then as you're talking, you're like kind of looking and trying to pay attention. Yeah. And so then when he came on and started helping doing all that, it really helped me kind of settle into just like sitting and having a conversation with people and you know, getting to that part of it.
Yeah, you got to stay away from that comment section, man. That thing is evil.
Yeah, it's terrible, dude.
It's a rough place.
I said like 100 good comments and then one bad comment. You're like, why did that guy say that? You know,
yeah.
like yeah, fuck that guy. He ain't doing shit.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
Yeah.
So, you know, since those guys came on, you got Bam, you got Pontius, you got Steve-O, Dave England, Danger Aaron. I mean, you got almost everybody. You got Wee Man recently.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see you play this role after not being in the second movie or the third movie, kind of being this great unifier of the Jackass universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but I mean, yeah, that's lovely to say it. But I think out of just wanting to catch up with friends, it was kind of like, oh, cool, let's get him on. We still got to get Knoxville and Preston on there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we're working on figuring out some time schedules because Preston is in Missouri, so he's not out. And then when he was out here, I was back east, so we couldn't make it work then. And I felt like I wanted to get it so that we're sitting in the same room, you know, because I just feel like there's something about the energy of that. You know, especially like being buds and just like getting, for old time's sake, just being like, yo, I kind of just want to hang out with you and go to lunch with you after this too. Yeah. But let's record this, you know. So those two guys still, and I mean, I know that Brandon doesn't want to do it, but I'll still always hold out hope that he would, you know.
Yeah, we'll all be holding out hope too. Yeah, for sure. But it's great as you know, from someone on the outside watching your stuff. Just to see you guys in the same room again. Like, it makes us feel like warm and fuzzy inside to be like, yes, cool. We get more of these guys. So last one for you before we let you go. Obviously, with all these guys coming in, a lot of guys have spoken about the future of Jackass, and it seems like a lot of the guys are at least a little bit interested in doing a fourth movie or some sort of project. Do you get the idea that that's something that the majority of the Jackass guys want to do or are interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling that everybody's pretty interested in it. I'm not sure that it would ever happen. I don't know. I mean, I think for a lot of years there's been that talk of like, yeah, it'll never happen again, and then this and that, and I don't know. And I think there's some level of like, I mean, Ryan was a huge part of that, so it's sort of weird without him. And that, like, because we've got that question about the CKY thing, like, are you going to do a CKY 5? And it's like, nah, that'll never happen. But there is a ton of footage where, there's a chance of maybe like some sort of reincarnation of some sorts from it. But like, but I don't know as far as Jackass, like, I would think maybe it would happen. But I don't know because I'm not in that world enough to know. Pontius has said that, like, dude, if we do it, you got to be involved, and and Wee Man will say the same, and like, I probably would be if asked to be, but I don't know that it even will be a thing.
Yeah.
Because everybody's busy doing things. Jeff has a production company. Knoxville has a production company. They're making documentaries and feature films and they're constantly working on stuff. And Spike's always super busy, and the rest of the guys have other little projects. Steve-O is always cruising around on his tour.
Yeah.
Preston's doing stand-up comedy. Bam is either working on one thing or another, either musically or whatever. And so it's hard to see what would be, but I imagine if basically I feel like if Tremaine and Spike and Knoxville said, hey, let's do it, then I would imagine it would go forward. Obviously, they're the executive producers and they make it happen. So if they were to say it, I don't think there would be pushback from others. I think everybody would probably join in and want to have a blast doing it again because it is something that you miss in your life. I mean, like I said, I became less of a character in Jackass as the time went, but it is a part of me. It is definitely, part of who I am. And I do miss that from time to time because, being on set is super fun. I work on all different types of shows and I have a good time. And I do find the creative types on sets are super fun to be around, and they make more sense to me than if I were like in a law firm or something. But that being said, none of it really matches up to the chemistry that happens with this bunch of guys, and just being able to say any joke you want that you feel like that's fucking over the line. People are gonna laugh. Like, there's a bunch of your friends there, they're gonna laugh at it and be okay with it. Where if you're, on like a professional movie set and you said some dumb shit like that, like people might be oh, you got to go to HR or whatever, like where on Jackass, what you're getting involved with and you sign up for that because you want to let your hair down and just be, obnoxious and over the line.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, thank you so much for giving me your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You were awesome. And I encourage everybody watching to check out the Bathroom Break podcast, one of my favorites. And I know you're not going to stop doing it anytime soon, and I appreciate that. So thank you so much, man.
Dude, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Graham.